I'll be honest. When I first made my 6v6 video back in August of last year, I didn't really expect it to become such a controversial topic, I guess you could say. Like, I just wanted my opinion out there. I had saw the Group Up podcast, or I'd seen the Group Up podcasts with, I think it was Jake, Custa, and Jaws. And SVB, like, mentioned a quote. It was like, yeah, but we all like 5v5. It's good. And they all three just, like, were like, yeah, and there wasn't even a conversation about it. So I was like, wait a minute. Like, let's really start thinking about this, because the PvE's gone. I had to take 2 or 3 months to set up Mindplex to make sure that work could be getting there. And so I came back to everything, and I was like, all right, let's break this down. Now, here we are, like, about half a year later, and it's been a pretty hot topic. I think, oh, man, I'm okay with people having their opinions, guys. Both are Overwatch. They just are different iterations of the game that, you know, the real question Blizzard should ask themselves is not which one is better. It's how can you play the field? And we're going to talk about that at the end of this little reaction of it just blew up on Twitter this week out of nowhere, which means that there's definitely a lot of interest, which honestly is really good for Overwatch. I think this is bringing a lot of eyes to the game and having a lot of discussion, keeping Overwatch relevant in the topic, which is why I'm okay with it, to be honest with you. Now, I'm only reacting to this because Coach Mills wants me to, who's our channel manager now. This is such a roundabout argument, but let's talk about it because there's some good points and there's some bad points all over the place. It all started with Gale's tweet here. Gale says, after so much playtime, around 12K hours and throughout the years, I can fully say that 6v6 was still the best form of Overwatch. I'm not saying Double Shield was great or that Goats was great. Both were terrible, but man, when 6v6 was good, it was great. I miss it. And that's because there was more to do. There were bigger moments, big combos, right? And those big moments are what make you log on to Overwatch every day, where there were better ways for heroes to express their identities and everything. God, it was just such a beautiful game. It really was. And I'm not saying 5v5 isn't. It's just never going to be peak like that. He goes on to talk a little bit more about, like, current Overwatch feeling bad to play. It's because the skill ceiling is lower. Like, in 5v5, the ceiling of the game is lower. It's a simpler game. It's Overwatch Lite. Would have been great for mobile, right? But it's just a simpler version of the game. And then Gator goes on down here to talk about, he says, it's a matter of time. 90% of the reason I retired, LOL. A classic mode or a competitive 6v6 mode would be awesome. So, most of the time, ironically, you see tank players complaining about 5v5. And that's because, like, the reality is, and what I'm sick of hearing is people saying that tank synergies were OP. Tank synergies were not OP. There have been countless videos that have debunked this. It was literally just double shield because Blizzard put an Overwatch 2 tank in Overwatch 1 and left it in the game for years and went and worked on the sequel, right? The real argument that 5v5 does have to stand on are queue times. And I wish people would be honest about the fact that we are just dogging the tank experience, right? Forcing you to counter swap across every rank now, not just in high ranks, right? Way more for the sake of queue times. And until we can actually be honest about that, this debate's not going to be productive because people are just going to keep beating around the bush. But we're going to move on to the next tweet here from SK. And SK says, I'm going to say it. 6v6 in Overwatch 2 would suck. Infinite queue times, double shield, perma diva in your face, Mauga plus Ram, Overwatch scene in Collegiate would die. No proof of this one. All the setups only have 5 PCs. Overwatch Collegiate only became big because it's 5v5 now. Now, this last part is complete malarkey. Like, Overwatch Collegiate was already on the rise, especially with the implosion of Tier 2. Like, at UK, the computer lab is filled with PCs, and that's only UK, right? But there's a lot of other places that are now building up the facilities. Like, collegiate esports in general is on the rise because it's becoming the most optimal way for, like, a scene to grow organically, like college athletics. Like, Overwatch being 5v5 or 6v6 would not change that, really. Like the reality is there's so much other stuff going on in the collegiate scene that, like, honestly, as much as I'd like to advocate for 6v6 on this one, like, you know, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Like, collegiate in general is on the rise, which is great. Like, you know, collegiate Overwatch is great. And, you know, after working and helping out with UK for the past 2 years, I can tell you that firsthand. It's definitely nice to see collegiate Overwatch do well. It's really sweet, but like 5v5 and 6v6 has nothing to do with that. They're bigger factors in play there. But now, okay, so obviously, if you just made the game 6v6 right now, it wouldn't work because guess what? Just like for 5v5, you'd have to redesign some of the heroes. Mauga plus Ram, Mauga's design would actually be able to be less oppressive in 6v6. Do you want to know why? Because Cardiac Overdrive would only have to apply to him. It wouldn't have to give it to the entire team because there would be another tank to hold space, right? So you'd be able to nerf a lot of the oppressive tank abilities that have to be insanely strong because there's only one tank. This allows for more fluid design and gameplay loops that aren't one-dimensional, where the game's, oh, well, I force fortify, now I can kill her. Oh, well, there's this cardiac overdrive, we poked him out, now we can use it. It's Overwatch Lite. The skill ceiling of the game's a lot lower, and honestly, I could argue that 6v6 would be better for Overwatch Collegiate because the skill ceiling would be higher, which would mean that the higher the skill ceiling, the better the pro scene is, right? So I could say that. I'm not going to, though. Perma Diva in your face. Again, like, the tanks would all be lower on their health pools and have worse cooldowns, right? Meaning they're actually more punishable if they're designed properly. The only reason tanks became oppressive in Overwatch 1 was because the devs continuously buffed Orisa going into role queue and never nerfed Orisa and Sigma properly, nor the supports that made that comp viable. October 2020 is proof of this. When they finally nerfed those characters properly before they rebuffed them right after, the game was regarded to be in the best state ever, and you could play anything and the game was loved. There is living proof that this happened, and you can go back and look at every creator's video. It's all there. It is all there. So from a gameplay perspective, it's hard to argue against that, right? So the one point, though, that is accurate, I think, or could be accurate, are queue times. And I think that's where this discussion needs to go next, because that's the logical second, because I have an argument about the queue times that we'll talk about a little bit later on. So we'll circle back to SK's point. Anything that's about hero design is super fixable and honestly would be better in 6v6 because, again, you could make Ram's shield way less health. You could also make his block not reduce 100% of incoming damage so that if he misuses his cooldowns and there's nobody to help him, he can die, allowing DPS to have even more opportunities to engage on a fight instead of only getting a pick, generally speaking, on squishies, right? You know, you actually could kill tanks. There are a ton of different ways the fights could evolve, a ton more combos that make the game fun. And I don't know, synergizing is just fun. That's like teamwork makes Overwatch fun. Big plays make Overwatch fun. They're bigger plays in 6v6. It's that simple. But okay. And then Jkaru quotes it and says, I'm going to say it. Several, quote, big influencers posting pro 5v5 anti-6v6 tweets at roughly the same time. I wonder why. You will play the bad game and you will trick yourself into thinking it's better than what you had before. Stockholm Syndrome ass game. There's one important thing that I want to point out here, despite people's banter going back and forth. Look at what the tank players are saying, and then look at what the people who are not tank players are saying. Almost every high-ranked tank player has come out and been pro 6v6. And the reason why that's important is because people need to accept that tank experience is significantly worse in 5v5 than it is in 6v6. It is that simple. It is not as fun. There's way more pressure on you, which ironically, the devs said you can go find the VOD, and I was going to post it in my Season 9 video, but I waited on the tank experience video because I wanted to give the developers a chance to let Season 9 settle in. I'll probably start working on that again here soon, but like I wanted to be fair to them and give them a chance to show what they could do in Season 9 after they shed the ball up chain of Activision, and now they have the Microsoft thing, and PvE's gone. So, however, as I said previously, the tanking issues were still going to be there, and I have the footage of Jeff Goodman and Aaron Keller saying this. So even they acknowledge that the tank experience is a problem. So to anybody saying tanking's fine in 5v5, tank synergies were OP, this, that, blah, 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 well, let's stop lying. Let's stop lying, okay? Let's accept it for what it is. Let's cut the fat here and not sugarcoat this and have it be what it is. So that was that tweet. I get the implication here. It's like, oh, the creators in the creator server who are getting good opportunities from Blizzard are defending Blizzard's decision, right? I don't even think Blizzard takes that decision personally, to be honest. I think that there's kind of like a lot of stuff going on there outside the picture. But, you know, I don't really know what to say about that. Like, personally, I'm not involved with Blizzard, like, at all from a content creator standpoint. I don't want to be. It's not really a shot at them. It's just my experience in there the past year was just not great. And, you know, I want to do my own thing, right? I think I could be more authentic to my viewers that way. And, you know, I don't wish any ill will on them at all. I hope it works out for them, right? Who doesn't want to see the game succeed? And who doesn't? Like, if you are ever at the point where you're rooting against success, a part of you has to look in the mirror, right? And ask yourself what you really want in life. And, you know, I've been at that point a few times and I was like, you know, sure. So anyway, moving on. Here comes Jake's tweet, right? Where he says, 6v6 should not come back. 6v6 had a higher team execution ceiling, but few people ever actually used it. Individual mechanics shine brighter than ever before in 5v5, and every player can make a difference without waiting for someone else to do their job first. To me, this is the essence of what makes an FPS game great. At the same time, we haven't lost the playstyle. Okay, we absolutely have lost playstyle options. That's just completely false. Team fighting and resource management that make Overwatch unique, okay? So, like, let's break this down from the top bottom, okay? 6v6 did have a higher ceiling. It did, right? It just did. The off-tank role was so versatile and flexible, like, it made a ton of different things happen, right? But few people ever actually used it. Okay, if this is true, then why does Jake always talk about tank synergies being oppressive? If no one ever actually used them, then why were they oppressive and why did we have to remove a tank role? Right? So you kind of acknowledge here that no one ever used it, especially in the lower ranks. However, now, because the matchups that are favorable are now swayed even more, right? For example, right, Zarya is a super favorable matchup into Diva, for example, right? So now, in lower ranks, where people never used to play the meta, where the tank synergies were there, right? Now you have to counter swap way more. And this has just been, like, if you read YouTube comments and read what people say, like, it's kind of been generally accepted. You have to counter swap more in this game than you did previously. And as one tank, that's not fun. You want to queue up Overwatch to play what you want to play. Individual mechanics shine brighter than ever before in 5v5, and every player can make a difference without waiting for someone else to do their job first. I don't think that's necessarily true. The path to getting value is much more one-dimensional, sure, but in 6v6, when the tanks weren't Orisa Sigma and there weren't constant immortality additional tanks in the backline as well, there were multiple targets on each team that were killable, including both tanks. Like, the individual tank was easier to kill. Now, throughout the fight, you had to do more. But again, I don't know if it's fair to say individual mechanics shine brighter than ever before, because the big plays aren't as big in Overwatch 2. In Overwatch 1, like, you almost never had games in Overwatch 1 where, like, I would check my damage stat in Overwatch 2. I'll have 7k damage and 7 elims, right? Like, the only time I saw that happen consistently in Overwatch 1 was double shield. By the way, you can go back and look at some of the old stats in terms of elims per 10 and stuff. Like, elims per 10 going from open queue and goats to roll queue with double shield went down by like 20 to 30%. It was double shield. It was only double shield, right? On average, people had about like 6 or 7 more elims per 10 in 6v6 than they did in 5v5, right? On average. Like, now, like, a good elims per 10 is about like 70. And obviously you could say, well, yeah, there was one more player on each team, right? So there were more kills that were going to be had. But at the same time, like, getting kills is a big part of allowing mechanics to shine, right? And so I would say that mechanics don't shine brighter in this game, because when you make that big play at the ceiling, right, it's not as big. There aren't big combos anymore. There aren't like huge big, except for Alariel. I think Alariel, it's actually really cool. I think that's a good, oh my God, that in 6v6 would have been crazy. Like, 6v6 just allows for bigger moments. So I wouldn't say mechanics shine brighter than ever before. I would say they're easier to come by. It's like, again, instead of the off tanks like dueling for space, it's just DPS shooting at each other. So, you know, I would say they're simpler. I wouldn't say they shine greater because the ceiling's lower, which is what kind of, again, you're saying right here. To me, this is the essence of what makes an FPS game great. At the same time, we haven't lost playstyle options. We absolutely have lost playstyle options. You as a DPS player have an easier route to get it, but the tank players have all suffered. Like, so it's come at the expense of the tank player. And this is my problem. Like, can we accept that it's come at the expense of making tanking fun? That's my main problem with this. Yeah, the DPS is like, it's easier to shoot at things because there's not another tank in the way. But all we did was just remove a tank. So I don't know if that's the full picture here. We absolutely lost play styles. Heroes like Rhine are just not made for this game. Reaper is not made for this game. So to be honest, like, yeah, a lot of heroes lost playstyle options. Reaper as a tank buster just doesn't work, right? It just doesn't work. Like, Reinhardt just isn't a hero. He's just been replaced. We lost a lot of them, actually, and a lot of heroes lost their identity. Hog just kind of exists at the front line, cannot flank, cannot make big plays. If he prefers it and likes a simpler path to DPS getting value, like, that's fine, guys. People can have opinions, okay? It's fine, right? But I'd like us to be honest about it, and the real argument is the queue times. That's what this comes down to. Oh, like, 5v5 was for marketing the new game as a new game, and queue times, which both, I guess you could say, are valid. Anyway, ZP quotes this. ZP's a great caster. I love ZP. I disagree with them, but I love ZP. He said, people don't want 6v6 to come back. Not actually. They want the feelings of Overwatch circa 2016 back, and mistakenly think that's going to bring back 6v6 and will achieve... mistakenly think that going back to... my fault. Going back to 6v6 will achieve that. You'd have to memory erase 7+ years of game knowledge skill form for everyone to achieve that. No, like, the tank experience was just better. There are bigger plays to be made. There's setups. There's a lot of better things that 6v6 did to raise the skill ceiling of the game that made the game super enjoyable to high-level play outside of double shield. So it's so silly, and this is what I see the 5v5 camp do all the time, and I am going to call them out, because I'll call out the 6v6ers for the dumb stuff that they say too, like a split queue and all this stuff, for not acknowledging why we had to go to 5v5 to begin with. I didn't even think we had to go to 5v5, but, you know, I'll be honest, it was for the marketing, let's be real. And the queue times too. But the fact that people just constantly try to speak for others is silly. Nobody is saying 6v6 should come back so that we can go back to 2016 Overwatch. Nobody is. They want 6v6 back because it allows for more balanced gameplay, and the tanking experience is fun, especially with all the new tank heroes that are in the game now, which are really, really cool. Like, tank design has come such a long way in the last, like, 3 to 4 years. Because, again, if you look at the original 3 tank heroes that came out, Orisa, Ball, and then Sigma. Like, just lame characters. Let's be real. Lame or overkitted. Sorry to all the Ball players out there, but let's be real here, okay? Look at the most recent 3. Tank Doomfist, dedicated player base. Junker Queen, really fun character. Even Ramatra, another really fun character. Mauga, I think, has a bad rep for no reason, other than the fact that he has to exist like that as a tank to be played in 5v5. I think his mechanics are cool. His stomp is cool. His ult is cool. The way that he's a hit scan-esque tank is cool. That would attract a lot of DPS players to play Mauga, which I actually heard about at UK Land this week. If tanks were designed like that, and obviously their abilities would have to be tuned down, like Cardiac Overdrive would only work on himself, Queen Shout would only work on herself in terms of overhealth, right? Like, it allows for more fair design to where, like, okay, now Queen, now we don't have to, we just take away the health that it gives extra people from the Shout. We can give a little bit of a speed boost too to allow more brawl comps, but she doesn't have to make her team tankier, right? Mauga's Cardiac Overdrive would only work on himself instead of the entire team, so you don't get Sim Reaper, right? Ramatra, you could easily lower his shield health because he's got a, you know, there's going to be more shields out there by a significant amount, and make him take more damage while blocking, while lowering his health, allowing him to be more punishable too. So there's actually like a lot more individual playmaking to be made. And if you make the right or wrong decisions, you could get punished, but your teammates have a chance to help you too. And it creates this beautiful flow of the game that 5v5 just can't capture. So I'm really sick and tired of the BS gaslighting from people trying to defend 5v5 and speaking for the old casual players out there, or competitive players, whoever it may be, trying to say, well, you don't actually want this back. You don't actually want that. How did that go for WoW Classic, guys? How did that go? I understand the queue time argument. I really do. That is the best argument for 5v5. It really is. Because queue times are a tough nut to crack. They are. The queue time talks did come up. They did. And I will absolutely acknowledge that. 100%. And that's what we should all be focused on. Not wasting our time on this, right? And so, you know, it's just, I'm sick of this. And this is what I'm not going to let people do. I'm not going to let people get away with speaking for others and trying to speak on behalf, you know, and put words in the mouth of why people want 6v6 back. It's disrespectful, it's dishonest, it's garbage, and it's because they don't have any actual points in a debate because they'll get cooked, just like the last 6v6 debate win. Because Hawk and I, go back and watch that debate. Our takes eggs like fine wine. Hawk predicted Mauga. Hawk completely predicted Mauga. Iron's video really shows that the original issues, and honestly, like my video following up about how supports ruin Overwatch, show that the tank synergies were never the most oppressive thing. It was the supports. Every time. And all of those things are fixable via balance, like we claimed. I will give the 5v5ers credit, though. Again, queue times, they're what we have to talk about. They are. It is a queue time issue. I think that's all I want to cover here. I mean, so, like, a lot of people are just throwing gaslight information out there and just things that aren't true. Things that aren't backed by fact, and saying the other people aren't backing things with facts. It's insane that anybody would sit there and say tank synergies were OP when nobody used them in the low ranks. They were only used at the high ranks and easily fixable with one single balance patch where, oh, well, you didn't have the right tank combo, you lose. Okay, well, now I get a Hog on Havana and instantly lose the game without a second tank anyway, and that kid was picking Hog in both games. So what about now? At least in the previous game, I had a chance to get a Sigma with the Hog, and we could win because he could try to flank. And shout out to Aaron because they are fixing the maps too, which is great. Devs are doing a lot of good things. But cut the malarkey. Cut the malarkey out, guys. Come on. Come on now. Like, I'm sick of hearing that absolute bullshit from people. It's completely wrong. And I'm not pulling my punches on it anymore. You're going to say that we're not coming at it with facts, You better be goddamn right about it, because you all are not, okay? You're right about queue times. I'll give you that. But the disrespect to the argument and the dishonesty from the 5v5 camp. Now, I'm going to roast the 6v6ers a little bit. I'm going to roast you guys. Now, because I just went in on the 5v5 camp, and I pride myself on being fair. So I'm going to roast some of the dumb 6v6 takes I've seen. If I see one more person asked to split the tank queue between off tank and main tank, I'm going to slam my head through a wall. That is even dumber. That is a dumber argument than trying to take the game to 5v5. Like the game would be better in 5v5 than it would be if you split the tank queues, unironically. And this is me saying that. So just stop suggesting it, for the love of God. It makes the 6v6 argument look really bad. It's a losing battle. Do you know what else is a losing battle? The open queue battle for 6v6 open queue. And I told Hawk and Iron this. I said, guys, like, that's a losing argument. I know you guys preferred open queue and it would solve the queue times and it would keep it 6v6, whatever. But the games where you get 5 DPS are miserable. It's impossible to convince somebody of that otherwise. And I love those guys. And I love the people trying to argue for it. But guys, like, you're not going to win that argument. You're just not. It's not worth discussing yet. It's really, really not. Because in my opinion, I think 6v6 roll queue has a real chance. Because let's now talk about queue times. I never ever want to see again in my life, oh, split the tank queues. You just can't do it. Stop. I never want to see that. And I don't want to see open queue yet. I don't. It's not worth the conversation. Here's what I want to see. I want to see a talk about the queue times, because the reason why queues got so bad, and they were good in October 2020, and Aaron said this, that there was a weird time in mid-masters, right? Mid to high masters, probably low GM2, where all 3 roles were being queued evenly. And you want to know why that was? Because all 3 roles were fun. The fun characters that had insane mechanical expression were meta. Not Sigma, not Orisa, not Bat Brig, none of that before they buffed the characters that ruined the game and then abandoned the game. The fun cast that adhered to the core philosophy of the original game were played, and the game was freaking sweet. It was peak, it was amazing, and then they abandoned it. And the devs were, I guess, bucolic, whatever. Sure. But look at the tank role now with all these new heroes. So look at the support queue times right now. Support's the most queued role. Its queue times are insanely high in Overwatch 2. Still 5 to 10 minutes usually at the higher ranks, right? Was that the case in Overwatch 1? Not sure, but they made support more appealing with more characters and more things to do and stronger abilities, and people went and queued it, and the role was fun and powerful, so people played it. Why can you not do the same thing with tank? Why aren't we trying it? With now Doomfist, the dedicated player base in the tank role. And those kids will lock Doom no matter what. Like, let's be real. You guys have seen these Doom players. They will lock Doom no matter what. Well, Queen's in there too now. And there's all kinds of new playstyles and ways to play the characters in 6v6 compared to 5v5, which has a one-dimensional gameplay loop. Mauga would be awesome with all the combos. Ramatra, another really fun one, right? Now you don't have to hard rework Reinhardt next. Guys, we're at the point where Flats had to ask to rework Reinhardt. Rework Reinhardt. That's where we're at. If that's not a reality check, then what the hell is it going to take? Why are we reworking Reinhardt? It's because the game was not designed for this format. It wasn't. It's an absurd discussion. Absurd. You could play Rein all day throughout all the ranks in Overwatch 1. You can't do that anymore. It's miserable. Because they'll go Orisa 1 life and now you have to switch. That's not a good gameplay experience. But now with all these other tanks and the game being free and actually being updated, queue times should be easier to solve now than they were in Overwatch 1 because the Overwatch 2 booger's off the finger. There are a ton of different things that Blizzard can and will do to solve queue times. And they did it with support, making support be queued more. They can absolutely do it with tank. And I'm so sick of seeing, oh, well, it's never going to come back. They're never going to do it. Well, they took the game to 5v5 to begin with, so they absolutely could take it to 6v6. Can't and won't are two different things. Won't is arguable. Can't is different. If I could have come back and said Blizzard can't take the game to 5v5 in 2020, people would have been like, oh yeah, you're right. It's not the answer. So again, this is kind of that Twitter drama. People on the 5v5 camp should stick to what they actually are right about, the queue times, because that would be a tough conversation to do. But here would be my argument to that and my answer. If you want people to use your product, you need to make it good. It's that simple. Your product is good, people will use it. It is that simple. The tank product was miserable due to all the buff CC that Jeff Kaplan's team never addressed. They kept doubling down. They abandoned the game for the sequel, and they never sat down and really fixed the core issues of the game, which is exactly what Aaron Keller's team is doing. And I got to give Aaron credit for going back and fixing maps, changing a lot of these things. If this balance team existed, and I give them a lot of grief, if this current balance team was in charge of Overwatch 1, GOATs never would have happened, Double Shield never would have happened, it would have been fixed. And you can go back and look at my video from back in the day where I said, as they nerf the barriers, this will not get rid of Double Shield. It won't happen. It's not going to get rid of Double Shield. Doesn't solve a thing. Everybody said I was crazy. Everybody said, Sam, you're just hating on the devs. You're toxic. You're doing all this. And God damn it, who was right? The receipts are all there. The receipts are there of Jeff Goodman and Aaron Keller saying, yeah, like the 5v5 thing. Direct quote, this 5v5 thing has a lot of promise, but it also has a lot of issues that we're going to have to figure out how to address. Direct quote from the developer PvP video reveal trailer. Well, year and a half later, the tank roll is still miserable. That's because you can't solve it because one tank is just not a good gameplay experience. It's just not. So this is what the debate is. Is the sacrifice of the tank gameplay experience worth it for the rest of the players in the game? That's the real argument here. I'm kind of sick of hashing it out. We can talk about it more. But the real question, if you're Aaron Keller, that you have to ask yourself is, how can you play this field to your advantage? Right? That's what I'd take home for. So this is the 5v5, 6v6 Twitter drama. 6v6, stop asking to split the queues. It's stupid. Don't do it. Stop asking for open queue. It's stupid. Don't do it. You're not going to win that argument. 5v5ers, quit beating around the bush. Quit lying. Quit, just say it for what it is. It's for queue times, right? All the heroes will be adjusted very easily. It's not hard, right? It can be done in literally one patch. And it'd be easier to punish tanks, and they'd fit more fluidly into the game. But yeah, regardless, I'm sick of it. This is me reacting to this video. I don't want to get into it anymore. This is for Coach Mills and you guys who have been asking me for my takes on it all. So that's the content for him. Thank you guys so much for watching 30 minutes of me ranting. I appreciate it. Much love to everybody at home. And it's okay to have your opinion. You can like either one. I won't think less of you for it. If you like 5v5, fantastic. If you like 6v6, fantastic. It's still Overwatch. It's just not peak Overwatch. So anyway, guys, I love you all. Take care. See y'all later. Peace out.